Good evening. Welcome to Expat Insights. I'm your host Raju Mandhyan. Here at Expat Insights, we take external views of internal successes of foreigners, expats and immigrants who have made Philippines their home and are doing good in the Philippines. Tonight we have a special honor. We have two guests. We have a lady from Germany. She's been in the country for 13 years. She's a Director of Urban Social Development and Public Management for ADB, and she works in the Pacific area. Her name, Andrea Iffland. Our second guest tonight is an Indian national, a professor, a teacher, a former faculty member of AIM, Mohan Fadke, who will join us later. But tonight, let's first meet Ms.Andrea Iffland. Andrea, welcome to Expat Insights.
Thank you. Good evening.
Tell us a bit about yourself before we talk about our subject tonight, which is success and failure.
Well, I came to the Philippines 13 years ago, and in essence, I really enjoy living here, and I really enjoy the culture, and I enjoy working with my colleagues, Filipinos, and another 60 nationalities. But my story of coming here to the Philippines is basically all motivated by development work. So there is a series of steps in between till I finally made it to the Philippines. First it was the Pacific, Tonga, and then Samoa with the United Nations, and then my way led me to East Africa, to Tanzania, which is a completely different world from the Philippines. And then finally, 13 years ago, I came to the Philippines, and there is actually no reason to leave.
There is no reason to leave the Philippines. You love it so much. I
really enjoy it. I enjoy the melting pot, I enjoy the culture, I enjoy the lifestyle, and I enjoy what I do, my work.
Compared to your home country, Germany, how different is it for you here? I mean, compare and contrast the two.
Well, I mean, some of you will have heard or have been to Germany. It's quite different. Well, I left Germany 25 years ago.
You grew up there, yeah.
I grew up there, and after university I left. So I've spent basically more time outside Germany than inside Germany. But I'm a regular visitor. I do enjoy the stereotypes still, and let me call them stereotypes.
The German nationals, you mean?
Yes.
Okay. And what are they? What exactly?
You know, we are supposed to be orderly, committed to work, punctual. The streets are clean, laws are being obeyed, so you know what you are at. So you have a very clear frame in which you work. And these are really stereotypes, there are always variations. And that gives you a certain amount of predictability for your life. And that has some advantages. But on the other hand, when you live in a different culture, in a different country, it's exciting, it's exhilarating, because sometimes you just do not know what you are going to get yourself into.
What's going to come?
You have no clue, and that is the exciting part of it. And that is what I enjoy, rather than the regularity and the predictability.
For many of us, including me, I have not been to Germany. And of course, I realize that that's how Germany looks to a person who's not been to Germany ever, that it's structured, orderly, and people are really hard-nosed, no? But for the sake of my audience, which is, of course, I'm assuming there are people who've never been to Germany, would you create a day in the life of a German national in Germany, and now a day in your life today here in the Philippines?
Well, there was one part in my last 25 years of work where I actually worked in Germany, 1.5 years, and this was the only stint, I have to say. So
this is in the recent
well, this was just before I came to the Philippines, and you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. In half of the year it is actually cold and dark when you get up, very dark and cold, 5 o'clock. By 5:30 you get into your car, in my case, or you take a train, depending, and then you drive for an hour through heavy traffic, and it's a longer distance when you drive an hour than when you drive an hour in the Philippines in rush hour. So the distance is longer. So like 80 kilometers, it's one way. You get into work at about 7:30 in your little cubicle. You keep on working, you have meetings after meetings, not much different from here. And By the time you get home, 7:30, all the shops are closed. I mean, this is wonderful in the Philippines.
You're up open until 10 p.m., yeah?
Yeah. Well, they have changed it now, but at that time when I worked there, it was all closed.
7 p.m.
So, no chance to go shopping. The fridge was empty. Then you park yourself in front of the television with, well, I love a glass of wine and I love a bit of cheese, and that was it. And then at 10 o'clock, back to bed, 5:30 again, you get up. On Saturday morning, you have to make sure that you go to
laundry.
a shop. Yeah, you do the laundry,
yeah.
You have to do your shopping, you have to clean your house, your flats, you do the washing, the ironing, all of this. So, and everybody who knows the Philippines knows what you do not do here.
Saturdays you play here.
Saturdays
Sundays you let go to church and stuff like that.
Yes.
So just, I don't know, church shouldn't be the thing that I discuss here, but how about the people in Germany? What do they do on Sunday mornings? Are they similar to Filipinos or different?
Well, there is one section of society who definitely goes to church. Sunday church, 9 o'clock. The numbers are decreasing.
Yeah,
the numbers are definitely decreasing.
Yeah.
I've been brought up in a smaller town, and there is still this habit of going to church.
Right.
But not everybody, and the younger generation
not as popular
is
as it is here.
Not really. Then there is the obligatory Sunday lunch, 12 o'clock.
Which is with community or with just family?
Family.
Okay.
Family lunch. And then you do sports. You go with the family for a walk, or you take a bicycle, or you visit a movie, or you go to all kinds of different things, some activities. Now, younger families don't have this rather rigorous style of Sunday. They just take it easy and they have fun with the kids, and it's focused on family. So it's really a family day, and that is very similar to the Philippines.
Right.
Very.
Okay. Now, can you describe for us your job, Director of Urban and Social Development and Public Management for the Pacific at ADB? Is that the correct way I'm saying
yes,
it? Yeah.
That's and quite a mouthful to be.
Yeah,
to
I know,
be
pretty
honest.
long. Yeah.
Yeah, it's rather long. Now, the Pacific Department covers 14 countries.
Yeah.
And we assist these countries and these governments in areas not only in urban, social, and public management. It goes much wider. It also includes transport and energy. So it's really depending on what the governments would seek our assistance in. We would be ready to support them, determine what the constraints are, and determine together with the government and communities and NGOs and the private sector how to address it. What are the issues? How can we address it, and how can we sustainably address it, no matter what it is?
Yeah.
So we go through this motion and we start developing together with the partners programs to address the issues, and then subsequently assist them in implementing it.
Where does the choice get made? Without indulging in secrets and how ADB works, but when does ADB decide that, hey, Tonga is a country we need to help and we can go ahead with it? Where does the decision making happen, and how does it happen, if you may?
It starts much earlier.
Yeah.
We only work with countries who are members of ADB to start off with.
Correct.
So if you are not a member of ADB, we would not be able to work with you. So those 14 countries in the Pacific are members. So that's the first thing. And this has been decided a long time ago when they decided.
Out of the 100 plus countries in the world, how many are ADB members?
We are only Asia and the Pacific.
Correct. So how many are members? How many countries?
We have, if I'm not mistaken, 62 member countries. But not only in Asia and the Pacific. We have countries who are members who are in Asia and the Pacific, but we also have member countries who do not borrow, and these are in Europe, Australia, New Zealand, and North America.
These are people who supply the sources.
Yes. And so we know with whom we work. And then there is an allocation system, because there are not endless resources.
Correct.
And some countries, based on their development progression, have access to certain sources, and others who are having a less developed level and GDP receive more concessional resources. And then it is determined on that level how much. It also is a matter of how big the population is. So there is quite a complicated formula. Let me not get into this.
Okay, let's not get there anymore. Yeah.
Certain countries have certain allocations per year.
Yeah.
And then the countries say, we would like to have your assistance in these areas.
In the last 13 years that you have been working with these countries, no? How have these countries grown and how have they become much more better than what they were before?
There are examples in Papua New Guinea. 10 years ago, there was no such thing as microfinance services in Papua New Guinea.
PNG, yeah.
Papua New Guinea, PNG. Similar to the Philippines. And the Philippines is a classic example on how to do microfinance. It's
Card Philippines. CARD card.
Yeah.
Of the gentleman who's got thousands of banks, yeah. Card Philippines, yeah. Card MRI.
So there are quite a lot of good examples here in the Philippines. Now in Papua New Guinea, this wasn't the case. So 10 years ago, we embarked of setting up a pilot microbank. And there is no restriction on how much you need in money to open a bank account. So with something like $2, you were opening a bank account, a savings account.
Right.
So there is no restriction. And we started this in rural areas, and it really took off. And it wasn't lending, it wasn't borrowing, it was all about savings.
Transactions and savings.
First savings.
Wow.
Borrowing comes later. Just keeping money safe. And getting into the habit of saving. So there, we were hoping that we maybe reach 15,000 people initially with this pilot. We have reached over 100,000.
10 to 15,000 new banks, 10 to 15,000 investors, customers, clients.
Customers,
clients. And you've reached millions?
Not millions, there are not so many
Well, how many people are there in PNG?
About 6 million.
Yeah, okay.
About 6 million. So this bank, it started off with a very small branch.
Right.
Has now, I think, 13 branches, and it renamed
flourishing,
itself.
yeah.
It's flourishing. This is just one example. There are other places which had no electricity, no water supply, health systems basically non-existent, schools which were dilapidated. So lots and lots of examples on where these countries progressed, and watching this and seeing this progression and success is just so rewarding, and this is why I love this job.
Thank you for using the word success, because that's the subject matter of the day, no? But before we go into the concept and philosophy of success, you know, and I understand you have some ideas on it, can you cite an example of successes in this domain, this 15, 16 countries, or in the Philippines, that you have seen and you have witnessed things change and become better? Philippines, if you want, if you live.
Let me just give you, as an expert in the Philippines, let me give you a picture of Manila when I came 13 years ago.
That was 97, 98?
Yes.
Yeah.
And how I see it now, and how it progressed.
Okay.
Because I think
You've seen the changes happen.
I have seen the changes happen.
Because you go in and out so many times.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when I came here, first of all, I was all positive. Coming from an African country, for me, the Philippines was
heaven.
Pure luxury. Pure luxury. So my readiness to embrace the Philippines was very high.
Yeah.
And it still stayed that way. So I started on a high, because some expats start on a low, and hopefully we all go and it all levels out eventually.
Right, okay.
But I stayed rather high, I must say. Now,
good
that was
us,
the time when the MRT was built on Edsa.
97, the MRT was being built, correct.
Was being built. There were traffic jams and traffic jams.
I think it was completed. 97, 98, it was completed.
I remember traffic jams which were horrendous.
Horrendous, I know. Edsa, Shaw, and Makati, terrible,
And we wanted to go out on the weekend, and we decided always to go to Malate.
Yeah.
And fine, 2
we
hours.
being friends from ADB, okay.
Yeah, and friends from the Philippines. So we decided to go to Malate. 2 hours to go, 2 hours to come back.
Oh, gee, all right.
And that has changed completely.
It has. I agree with you, absolutely, absolutely. I kid you not. Okay.
So that was the first change, and then being a German, we do like, because there is so limited time in the year, where the climate is nice and it's nice and warm, we like to sit outside.
December.
December, yeah, sitting outside. But
Yeah.
sitting outside was, we didn't know where to go here. We just didn't know.
Right.
There were hardly any entertainment places, restaurants, or little pubs and things like that where you could sit outside in Manila.
Malacca, there were a few.
A few,
Yeah.
but not very many.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, you look
Hundreds
around.
of them.
Wow,
Hundreds of them,
it's
yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah,
it's
especially
everywhere.
in the fort area.
The Fort and
Ortigas,
Greenbelt
yeah.
and Eastwood, and I mean, it's amazing. No? So for an expat, life has changed, as far as I'm concerned, dramatically.
30 years ago, when I came to this country, there was no LRT. Not the MRT, there was no LRT.
No LRT.
And I used to travel from Manila all the way down to North Bulacan. It used to take me half a day. And I used to think that maybe I should get paid for reaching there, not for going and working there. So tell us now a bit about success from that perspective. You think Philippines has been successful? The banking system you put up in PNG is successful. So what drives success, Andrea? What defines success, and then what drives it?
I do not have a Wikipedia definition
All
of
right.
success, but just my personal,
all right.
my personal definition. In order to be successful, you need to start having a vision. You need to know where you want to reach, how you picture it, and why you want to get there. Why do you want to achieve this? So the vision and the motivation behind it, and that has to be strong to start.
The vision and the purpose.
And the purpose.
Yeah.
Why do I want to reach there? So why do I care?
Correct.
And once I've established that, I have to have determination and focus. I need to keep on focusing and keep on plodding away. Success doesn't come necessarily overnight. So if you lose focus too quickly, then yeah, it just peters out and there's nothing left. So determination, hard work. I do believe it takes hard work. You can't just be successful just on a flimp. And the will to also admit that you didn't succeed. And then
Wow,
you start,
that's another side of the coin.
Yeah, and then you start afresh.
Yeah.
But you have to learn. The important thing is you take the steps, and there is a backlash, and then you learn from the mistakes, and then you
go back again.
And you go back. And it is basically like a spiral, and you have to keep on going, and not be discouraged. Say, oh no, it doesn't work, and let me just get out of it. This doesn't work. So keep on going, and learn from the mistakes, and eventually, depending what your goal is, you will succeed.
Two questions, follow-up questions to that philosophy of yours. No? One is a very superficial question. The second one is, what do you do with external circumstances? Given that you set a vision and you follow it with a passion and with discipline, given there's an earthquake, given there's a tsunami, given there's an economic meltdown, how do you figure that in? And how do you manage that? For countries, for individuals, what do you do with that? I understand you said that if you fail, go back again, but how do you manage something that is beyond your control?
Well, first of all, you can't feature it in, because you don't know when it's going to happen.
Correct.
So that's the first thing. So don't be deterred by the fact that this may happen or may not happen, which is beyond your control.
Yeah.
Keep it in mind, but you can't prepare for it. Having said that, once it happens, to sit down and basically lay out the options. What options do I have? Does it make sense to pursue the same goal? Will I start afresh, rebuild my business, start with my career, or pack up and go somewhere else? But this is basically where you take a cut, and you have to say, what is it now? Does it make sense? What are the odds? And weigh your options.
Very clear.
But
very
be
clear.
open to it.
So you're saying adapt a bit.
Yes.
Don't give up, don't surrender, but adapt a bit to changing circumstances and come back for it. The other follow-up question, which is not very bright, is any difference between the philosophy of success in Europe which is, you know, kind of well-to-do community, and Asia, which is still a growing community. Any difference in perspectives towards success? From your perspective, Andrea, since you've moved around.
I sometimes think that in Europe, from the way I knew it when I grew up, was focused on, definitely on financial success.
In the years that you were growing up?
When I was growing up. But I get the impression that this has changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
Financial success is still there,
yeah.
but the freedom to explore, the freedom to do what you like to do,
yeah.
the ability to be creative, the focus on family, this has come a lot more to the foreground.
Right.
Than
things,
it used to
things,
be.
Non-tangible things.
The non-tangibles. The I like to do a job where I get my personal satisfaction out of it, rather than this is the job that pays the highest. And I get the impression, and this is only an impression, that in Asia at the moment it is more focused on financial success.
On material gains, okay.
It will, I presume, this will evolve.
Yeah.
It will evolve. But at the moment, it seems that it's more on financial success and being able to acquire various things.
Great, great. You were actually talking about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, no? On that note, Andrea, I'd like to thank you for being on this show. Thank you for your insights, being an expat, and thank you for the work you're doing for ADB and the whole Pacific region. We have a couple of minutes left for the show to end. If there's anything I forgot to ask you, or if there's anything you want to tell your friends, this is the moment.
Well, for all of those, and I know there are many people out there who are a little skeptical about the Philippines. And Philippines always hits the news internationally, either because there is an earthquake, or there is a typhoon, or there is a ship sinking, or whatever it may be. To be very honest, just ignore the news. Sorry, ignore the news. The Philippines is a really great place to live. It has wonderful people, and if you ever have a chance to work here or to visit and have a holiday here, I think you should do this. I really, really recommend it.
Mabuhay. At that note, mabuhay. That's the underlying belief of this program. We always put out the good, and thank you for highlighting it so beautifully, Andrea. Iffland, and
thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you.
So that was Ms.Andrea Iffland of ADB, who's been in this country for 13 years, and I hope you heard her insights really, really well, because that was very nice. We'll take a break and we'll come back and talk to Mr. Mohan Phadke, who will give us a perspective on the other side of success. Stay with us. This is Expat Insights. I'm your host, Raju Mandhyan. Good evening. Welcome back to Expat Insights. We are on the second section of the show about success and failure, and our guest, Mr. Mohan Phadke, is right now in the chair of the guest. I'd like to make a little correction. Mohan is not faculty of AIM now. Mohan is a former student, and he was on the board of trustees. He was also a member of the Alumni Association of AIM in India for the longest time. He's not an expat or an immigrant in the Philippines. He comes here a dozen times a year. And so he knows Philippines and India very well. So let's talk to him about a little bit about himself and about the concept of failure. Mohan, doctor, no, not doctor, right?
No.
Mr. Mohan Phadke, welcome to Expat Insights. And
Thank you.
Tell us a bit about yourself, sir.
Obviously born in India.
Yeah. Okay.
Long time back.
Yeah.
Did my rounds in education. Fortunate to be educated in the English medium and the rest of it. My basic qualifications being an engineer and a postgraduate engineering from Carnegie Mellon. Did my corporate round of almost 38 years.
Wow, in India. In India. This is in the 60s and 70s.
Started with 70s, you know, 70 to be more precise. Tata's. Telco, which is now Tata Motors.
Yeah.
Then the Thapa Group, the DuPont as a joint venture. So
three large companies.
Yeah, three large. You know, very fortunate to be associated.
Yeah.
And of course, the change that occurred as my sabbatical in AIM Manila
Which was in
1979, and
31 years ago.
31 years ago. It feels like yesterday.
Okay.
That's the spirit of this country and the attraction
Right,
of AIM.
right, yeah.
And I have been continuing to be associated with AIM in different capacities as an alumni head of the Global Alumni Association.
Global, not just the Indian.
No,
Okay.
India, of course, I was there for 12 years.
No.
But it's the greatness of the institution that it gives importance to the alumni. We invite the alumni global head to be on the board of trustees, and that's where I was, and I continued for almost,
how long was this?
Almost for 11 years in different capacities. And I have been associated with AIM in a way from Indian side, trying to bring in as much as possible closeness of Indo-Philippine relationship, business, delegations. I've been hosting every, you know it, and you know, as when you were a chairman of your Philippine India Council, we hosted you in Delhi, in Mumbai, and I think I've hosted every visit of FER, including his first state visit.
Which was in 91?
March 4th, 1997. I can't forget
97,
that.
not 91?
No, 97. That was the first state visit.
Delegation of Philippines.
Of any
India.
Philippine president.
1997. So in the years that you have been shuttling back and forth from India to Philippines and working to bring India and Philippines closer together, how close have they come in the years?
I think we both were looking at West, so there's no blaming anybody.
Both countries, India?
Yes, yes. This is a underlining cause.
Correct.
But now things have changed, and we are both looking towards East, so it helps in looking at each other. The geography doesn't change, but the mindset changes slowly.
Yeah, I meant spiritual closeness, of course.
That's one. I think the economic changes that have been brought out by bringing in ASEAN and we becoming, India become a guest member of ASEAN, has changed a lot.
Yeah.
And so you find from one company that was there in Philippines, the Birla Group, now we got several of them here. And I'm very happy to say that even Philippine kind of joint ventures have started into
putting
India.
up companies in India. Any examples of?
There is, just recently I came to know, I was not aware of it, there is a software company, Software Incorporated, based in Mumbai. Two Stanford students have got together, one of them is Filipino. And they're doing software work, and they are, I believe, here for some work with one of the universities here.
Ayala and Mahindra have partnered.
Those are the real big ones have just come in. Ayala has partnered with Mahindra, and I must say there is an AIM alumnus who was the first Philippine investor into India as a joint venture. That was Marian Santiago.
Who is that?
She was in a...
Marian is a girl?
Yeah, very much.
No, I thought Marion.
No. Marian and her sister Joyce, they were both the Pocket Bell, company owners.
Oh, during the days of the pager.
That's correct.
Do they still use them in India?
No, just like inside the corporations we have, sometimes. But they were the first joint venture, investors into India. So there is a bit of a history that can be always stretched and, expanded. And I think there's a lot of future now, a lot of commonality between the education is one of them, which is growing. And that's one reason why I get attached.
Mohan, before we go into the subject matter of failure, this is for my personal sake. I'd like to understand how AIM has changed. And how Indian institutions, which are now really getting a good reputation over the years, what created this and where does AIM stand and how is AIM today, 31 years hence, 31 years from the time that you were a student there?
I must say that AIM, with its position that of dominance in the Asian region that has been there,
it still is. Yeah.
And well, it's growing, but it's not grown in a manner that I would have liked to see with campuses of AIM all over in Asia, or at least in a few countries.
That hasn't happened.
That hasn't happened.
Right.
I'm very sure in the next 10 years or 5 years plans, AIM will be seen with brick and mortar in certain areas, and perhaps we had our own small areas of constraints and outlook. But as far as the product of AIM is still very good,
It's
very well respected,
yeah.
And there is no doubt about it.
No doubt about
And
it.
a lot goes to the faculty, and a lot goes to the people behind it in terms of board and trustees and the kind of interaction that is there.
I hope they're listening to this.
Oh yeah, I will make sure that they
They
listen
do.
to
They do. AIM, ladies and gentlemen, is Asian Institute of Management, if some of you may not know that. And now let's take this comparison to IIM, which is the Indian Institute of Management, which has become really popular over the years. What are they doing differently compared to AIM?
Firstly, AIM has been a private investment institute.
Right.
It's
okay.
not a government of Philippines institute.
Oh, okay.
So that's fundamental.
Right.
IIMs, that is the Indian Institute of Management, which was started way back
by
in
the ministry,
India, has been 100% government of India promoted, invested, and I won't say managed, but yes, the board is heavily on the government of India side.
Right.
It's only very recently, very recently, last 2 years, the structure has allowed it to charge its own kind of fees, earn a little more from their own aid. There is a kind of a revenue expenses kind of a analysis done. So it's changing a little.
Right.
Fundamentally, we never had foreign students admitted into this because there was like a bylaw.
Right.
And so these were the fundamental difference between AIM and AIM was 100% from day one international by a decree of the President of
by
the
the
Philippines.
culture of it, yeah.
I know, by legal decree,
yeah.
And IIMs never had that.
So today, where is IIM in terms of size, in terms of output and performance? How many graduates are they churning out every year? Because Indians, I see running them all across the world with little laptop bags, and they're all coming from IIM. You see a guy with a laptop at the airport, he's from IIM.
Well,
so how many people are they?
Well, we started with 3 IIMs, almost 2, and then the third one came and was in Bangalore.
Yeah.
IIM Ahmedabad and IIM Calcutta was the first, and then IIM Bangalore much later.
Yeah.
Now, of course, we got many more. It's almost 10 now. And, well, that's just in the last few
10
years.
institutes?
Yeah, it's in the last few years. But that's just in the last few years. The 3 remain for a number of years.
Yeah.
No, that number is growing. There's no question about it. Almost about 3,000 to 4,000 will be churned out every year in different capacities.
These are postgraduates.
So, MBA, equivalent MBA.
Wow. Mohan, now you are here to give us insights on the subject matter of failure. So the floor is yours. Come into failure from any direction you want. You want to hold the tail of failure and tell me what you mean. Yeah. What is it that you want to put across about failure?
Well, this is a subject has fascinated me because during my professional career, I have been trained in a manner to look at things very little differently because of my long tenure with Tatas, who have been known for a certain kind of governance and certain kind of operations.
Right.
So we look at things a little different, so that comes naturally to me. Let me define failure. It's a good thing to define,
Well, you hold the Wikipedia. My former guest did not hold the Wikipedia.
Well, I love to define first something.
Go ahead,
so the Webster says, a fact of not matching hopes or expectations.
A fact of not matching hopes or expectations. Okay.
That's failure.
That's failure. So, for example, if I want to finish the show in 45 minutes and I finish it in 60, I fail.
Yes.
My expectations, at least my expectations.
Yes, that's right. Success is a degree or measure. So again, there is that element of judgment. Degree or measure of attaining a desired end. So, it's not something like a go, no go. The definitions is not go, no go. It's not 4 feet or 5 feet. But yes, now it depends on who looks at success. I would rather look at success and failure with how and not with what.
Oh.
Yeah. I'll say how you achieve success is much more important than what you have achieved in success. You can achieve $1 billion.
Hang on. First, let me get clarity on the degree of success.
Yes.
What does that mean? That means if I finish the show in 45 minutes and still, again, it's my own perspective, my feeling towards how I finish it, that would be the measure of my success, or the fact that I finished in 45 minutes?
I think you have to apply that as how first. have you achieved that?
Okay, the
how
quality
part?
of the discussion. All
What
right.
you had desired at the end, have you achieved that?
Okay, okay, not
Now, if
the measurable facts.
Not the
okay.
measurable fact. See, the very simple comparison is quarterly results of Wall Street is one success.
Okay.
Right? And Saddam would have some success in numbers.
Well, not
right?
in my book of opinions, but
you got numbers, right?
Yeah.
But it's more important whether that is what you are going to be measuring and taking it as how.
Okay,
Right?
okay.
And the same I like to apply with failure, and therefore I have a common word for it. It's how you embrace failure. It's a kind of a funny word. It's how you embrace failure.
Embraces hug.
Literally,
Yeah?
literally.
Right.
How you embrace failure and how you embrace success will really define what you're going to, talk about.
Make it real for me.
Okay, let's
paint the picture.
paint
yeah.
the picture. Let me give you an example,
Yes,
because that's the best way to, my favorite, corporate leader or whatever you call him is Sir Richard Branson. The
Virgin
great
Atlantic.
Virgin Atlantic.
Right.
He believes in screw it, let's do it. That's his autobiography.
He believes in
Yeah, that's his title of his book.
screw it.
Screw it, let's do it. That sounds strange, but that's exactly what he is, and he's a great personality.
Okay.
Now, he has all the ingredients of a family life and upbringing. His mother, a great hero for, he's really follows his mother
All right.
last year. Now, he would also see certain aspects of ego.
Involved in his endeavors.
Yeah. Now, this ego is a funny word. You look at it, ego, purely with arrogance, you will end up in certain path. Now, look at his ego. His ego, he wants to achieve something that nobody has and pioneer. But at the same time, he always has kept mind how many people are getting affected. Those who helped him are getting affected. Those dear ones who are his shareholders, whatever it may be, he comes back into that. And a good example is, he wanted to be the person to cross the Atlantic on a balloon.
He did it? Did he do it?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know about that.
He failed for the first time.
Yeah.
Then he went through the exercise of what all went wrong, got himself trained into balloon flying and all that, and he did it again.
Just like what Ms. Iffland was saying a while ago. Yeah. So he adapted. He failed once, he learned from it and adapted, okay?
And the same thing he applied when he wanted to do what is a well-known race, blue ribbon, which is when you cross the Atlantic in a boat, a power boat.
Yeah.
Well, he did that.
He participated there.
And just out of Mako he did it, and he failed the very first time. What he learnings from there, in 6 years, he said, no, I must give it back to all those people who had faith in me, to make sure that I go through this, I must give it back to them. So he, in 6 years' time, he succeeded. The purpose is, how?
Yeah.
Now, if that ego was of arrogance in him, it's due to the bad weather, it's due to the, thing like that, you stop there. And you start blaming. That's what happens in Wall Street. Every quarter, if there is it's something else, somebody else. So that ego which you have, if you look at that ego with passion and service to the people or your people who have helped you, that ego is far from arrogance, and it helps you to understand failure.
Right. So
differently.
Yesterday at LaSalle, I heard another consultant talk about focusing in and focusing out. So you're saying similar, that a consultant at LaSalle was talking about focusing out would guarantee more success?
Provided it matches what you want inside.
What you want inside. So
if
congruence and authenticity.
And if it doesn't, you are into a gray area.
Now that's good for the individual, me, ego one. How about a larger group of people? How about an organization? How about a community, a country that succeeds? Ms. Iffland was saying Philippines is succeeding, but yet it doesn't appreciate its own success.
That's correct.
So what about the country? How does a country live up to its ego?
I have a very good example of none other than your own country here.
Which is Philippines.
Philippines. And
India.
absolutely.
Yeah.
An example that I cherish and I really worship him.
Right.
FVR.
Mr.
Okay.
Ramos, yeah.
A classic example of adaptive leadership.
This was 10 years ago.
Well, I think he was there from day one.
Yeah.
In this process.
Yeah.
Whether he was in the armed forces, AFP, or the Philippine Constabulary,
yeah.
and I'm sure you people are more familiar with than me, he never budged from his very fundamentals. And that is to maintain the constitutional and the proper process.
Yeah.
And he laid stress on it.
Yeah.
Whether he was dealing with the armed forces personnel,
yeah.
or he had to deal with the constitutional elements
right.
of political, he
right.
always maintained that part of
yeah.
it. And he never hesitated taking that hard step where it demanded, because he had options, various options, to get away with it.
Yeah.
And one of the big reasons why I feel that Philippines has this, and they should nurture this
power,
right there. It's good to achieve success and power, but it's the most difficult thing to give it away and step down. If you have in principle agreed, and FDR did that.
So you're saying that even if it was a community or a country, it still is individual driven, leadership driven.
Leadership.
Okay.
You can't get away with it.
Okay.
So it does. Now, take the example of Tatas that I can't help coming back into it.
That's your
that's your
my
DNA.
Your DNA. Tata, ladies and gentlemen, by the way, is the company that makes the biggest amount of cars and trucks in India. That's the company that's making the most smallest car in the world today.
All
the
right.
Nano.
That's what I was going to come to.
Okay, see.
All right. You talk of governance, you talk of good practices, etc. There's a whole lot of literature being, moved around. At Tata's, there was no such thing. It was a way of life. Even when I came back and joined straight away from US in that company, there was no handout that you don't bribe, you don't do this, nothing. You're into it, you suddenly start feeling the waves. That if you don't, you're out of place. And that's one thing very important, that these kind of practices and things are best learned when they are natural and not thrust upon, because they don't last. The Cadbury reports and governance of every kind of thing, they don't last, because they last only to the balance sheet, nothing beyond that. Similarly at Tata's, when we learned how we learned from our failures, there were failures. Of course there were failures. We wanted to get into the car kind of passenger vehicle, there was a pickup design, it failed. So
you
learned from there, how we improved on it. Come 2001, in the history of telco, we never had these kind of losses. We went into almost 5 billion loss. It was not so much of the numbers that was hurting, the pride of everyone got hurt.
The ego got
hurt. And the ego could have been differently hurt. Hey, this is bad. It's not our fault, it's the government. No, every person resounded differently, and it turned around in 2 years, because that was a passion. Similarly, there were 3 other car companies, and they took it at arrogance, their ego.
So their
nobody is better than us, kind of. They are nowhere now. So question is, when you look at the ego and want to convert it in a passion, and that's what gave Nano to the whole world. Why? Because there was a passion in Mr. Ratan Tata when he saw a family on a motorcycle. Why can't we give them a solution?
Mohan, we need to wrap up this interview. Yeah, we are up with the time. So if there's anything you want to tell the Filipino audience that's watching about your experiences quickly, anything that I've forgotten to ask you, this is your moment, and that's your camera over there, Mohan.
Well, it's my second home, so I will always say, come home to India. Look at India as your true partner in every aspect of life, and I cannot say more than that, because that is my real feeling as Filipinos are concerned. And you are most welcome to exchange your views and your practices with us, and I can assure you it will never be lasting from us.
Mabuhay po, Mr. Mohan Farki.
Namaskar.
Welcome to the
Namaskar.
Philippines. So thank you for your insights. So ladies and gentlemen, that was Ms.Andrea Iffland and Mr. Mohan Farki talking to us about success and failure. Next week on Expat Insights, we will have Master Del Pay, who is world renowned for his spirituality. He's a Filipino, and we'll have him here next week. And I'd also like to plug my book launch, which happens on September 3 at Fully Book Surrender. See you there, and good night and mabuhay.